There are moments in history when the outcome of a battle is already decided long before it begins, when numbers alone are enough to crush any hope of resistance, and when those who stand on the weaker side are not expected to survive, not even long enough to be remembered. And yet, history is not always shaped by those who are strongest. Sometimes, it is shaped by those who choose to stand, when standing makes no sense at all. In the year 1274, the Mongol Empire had already become one of the most powerful forces the world had ever seen, expanding across vast lands, destroying kingdoms, and leaving behind a reputation so terrifying that many places surrendered without even trying to fight. Under the rule of Kublai Khan, this empire was not slowing down. It was accelerating, moving forward with a confidence built on countless victories. And when its attention turned toward Japan, it was not a question of if an invasion would happen, but when. Japan, at that time, was isolated, protected by the sea, and untouched by the kind of large-scale invasions that had reshaped so many other parts of the world. Its warriors, the samurai, followed a code of honor, discipline, and individual combat, a way of fighting that valued courage and direct confrontation. But the Mongols did not fight that way. They fought differently. They fought as a unit, coordinated, strategic, and overwhelming. They used tactics that ignored tradition, weapons that created chaos, and methods designed not just to defeat an enemy, but to break them completely. And this difference would change everything. The invasion was carefully planned. Hundreds of ships were gathered, thousands of soldiers prepared, warriors from different lands brought together under one command. Mongols, Chinese, Koreans, all moving toward a single al-Hadaf, Japan. And when the fleet finally set sail, it was not just an army crossing the sea. It was a signal that something unstoppable was coming. As the ships approached the island of Tsushima, the first point between the invading force and mainland Japan, the sea itself seemed to disappear beneath them. Sails covered the horizon. Shadows moved across the water, and for those standing on the island, there was no confusion about what they were seeing. This was not a raid. This was an invasion. Tsushima was not ready. It was a small island, not heavily defended, not built to resist an army of this size. For the Mongols, it was nothing more than a stepping stone, a place to land before moving deeper into Japan, a place that would fall quickly and be forgotten. But the island was not empty. There were still people there, and among them, warriors, samurai, not many, not enough, but present. And as the Mongol fleet drew closer, as the reality of what was coming became impossible to ignore, those who remained on Tsushima were faced with a choice: to leave and survive, or to stay and face what was coming. There was no middle ground, no reinforcements, no hope of victory, only a decision. And in that moment, they chose to stay. 80 men, 80 samurai, standing on an island that was about to be overwhelmed by an army of 30,000. They had seen the ships, they knew the numbers, they understood the reality. And still, they did not run. Because for them, duty was not something that changed based on the situation. It was absolute. There was no strategy that could save them, no plan that could change the outcome, only time. And even that was limited. But sometimes, even a little time can matter. Because every moment of resistance forces the unstoppable to slow down, to react, to fight. And as the first Mongol soldiers prepared to land on the shores of Tsushima, as the quiet of the island faded into the noise of an approaching army, those 80 men stood ready, not for victory, but for something far more difficult: to face the end without stepping back. And in that moment, the invasion of Japan truly began. When the Mongol forces finally stepped onto the shores of Tsushima, they did not hesitate, they did not slow down, and they did not expect resistance, because in their eyes, this was not a battle. It was a process, something routine, something that had already happened countless times before, where the enemy would either run or be crushed within moments. They moved forward in formation, organized, disciplined, their numbers stretching across the land, their presence overwhelming. And for a brief moment, it seemed like they were right. Because against an army like this, who would stand? But then, something unexpected happened. The samurai stepped forward, not from behind walls, not from hiding, but directly into the path of the invasion. 80 men against thousands. And for a moment, the unstoppable force met something it did not expect: resistance. The first clash was immediate and brutal. The Mongols did not fight the way the samurai were used to. There were no individual duels, no formal challenges, no space for honor in the traditional sense. Only coordinated attacks, only strategy, only overwhelming pressure applied from all sides at once. Arrows filled the sky, falling in waves. Explosives shattered the ground, breaking formation, creating chaos. The sound of war replaced the silence of the island, turning Tsushima into something unrecognizable. And yet, the samurai did not fall back. They adapted, they moved forward, they fought, not as individuals seeking glory, but as warriors buying time with every second they remained standing. Because times was the only thing they could still control. Every moment they resisted forced the Mongol army to slow down, to engage, to react. And in doing so, the battle became something more than just a landing. It became a fight, a real fight. And for the Mongols, that was not expected. But numbers do not lie. And slowly, the balance began to shift. One by one, the samurai began to fall. Each loss inevitable, each moment heavier than the last. But even as they were being overwhelmed, they did not retreat, because retreat would not save them. There was nowhere to go, only forward, only resistance. The battlefield turned into chaos, smoke rising, fire spreading. The ground covered in bodies, and still, the fighting continued. Because for those who remained, surrender was not an option. Every strike they made, every second they survived, forced the Mongol army to fight for ground that was supposed to be easily taken. And that changed something. Not in the outcome, but in the experience. Because what was meant to be simple had become difficult. What was expected to be quick had become slow. And what was supposed to be effortless now required effort. But even the strongest resistance cannot stop numbers forever. And as the battle continued, the end moved closer. Fewer samurai remained, their strength fading, their numbers shrinking, but their decision unchanged. They would not run, they would not surrender, they would stand until there was nothing left. And as the Mongol army continued to push forward, step by step, through fire, through resistance, through men who refused to break, the Battle of Tsushima moved toward its inevitable end. But not without a cost. By the time the battle began to fade, there were very few left standing. The noise of war slowly turning into silence, the fire still burning, but the movement gone. And on that battlefield, where thousands had advanced, only a handful of defenders remained. Not because they had survived by chance, but because they had refused to fall until they had nothing left to give. One by one, the last of the samurai were surrounded, their strength fading, their bodies wounded, their numbers reduced to almost nothing. But even in that moment, there was no surrender, no final attempt to escape, no plea for mercy, because they had already made their decision long before the battle began. This was where they would stand, and this was where they would fall. The final moments were not loud. They were not dramatic. They were quiet, heavy, inevitable. Each movement slower than the last, each breath harder to take, until finally, there was no one left. No voices, no resistance, only silence. Tsushima had fallen, just as everyone had expected. The Mongol army stood victorious, their numbers unchanged, their path forward still open. But something was different, because this had not been a simple victory. It had not been effortless. It had not been clean. For the first time, they had been forced to fight, not against an army, but against a decision made by men who knew they would lose and chose to fight anyway. And that kind of resistance leaves a mark. The Mongols continued forward, moving deeper into Japan, carrying with them the confidence of an empire that had never truly been stopped. But now, there was something else with them, something small, but dangerous. Doubt. Because if 80 men on a small island could slow them down, what would happen when the entire nation stood against them? And sometimes, that question is enough to change everything. History does not remember all their names. It does not record every moment of their final stand. Their faces lost to time, their voices gone forever, but their choice remains. Because in the end, their story was never about victory. It was never about defeating an empire. It was about something much simpler and much more powerful. The refusal to disappear quietly. The decision to stand when standing changes nothing except the meaning of what comes after. And sometimes that is enough, because history is not always written by those who win, but by those who refuse to surrender.